So, as you know, today's session, Winning the Call Before It Rings, is all about how AI is changing the way customers find and choose contractors. Homeowners aren't just Googling anymore, they're asking AI tools to recommend who they should call. And those recommendations are being made before someone even lands on your website. So, this is really about understanding how those decisions are being shaped and what you can do to make sure your business is part of that conversation. So I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Dave, co-founder and CEO of Punchlist Digital. Dave works closely with home service companies on digital strategies, and he's been on the front lines of how search and customer behavior are evolving, especially with the rise of AI. Today, he's going to walk us through what's changed, what it means for your business, and most importantly, what we can actually do about it. So Dave, we're excited to have you, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on here, guys. And nice to see y'all. I've got a ton of content here for you. I'm going to share my screen in a second. All right. So winning the call before it rings, how AI search is reshaping contractor selection. Again, I'm Dave Spannhake, CEO and co-founder of Punchlist Digital. Just a little bit about me before we get started. I've in my 21st year now of doing marketing. Started off doing newspaper, radio, TV, all that kind of stuff. I was the VP of marketing at Leith Automotive, for those who are familiar with the Raleigh area in the automotive industry. And then I started another company called Reunion Marketing 11 years ago, and took out all my retirement, had maxed out my credit cards, went 8 months without a paycheck. It was a whole it was a very fun endeavor, but we were able to grow that up to now work with about 650 dealerships across the automotive industry, across the country. Then along the way, we realized home services. We started working with a few here. We worked with Apex. We worked with a few folks that we just kind of accidentally got along the way, and then it's like, wow, home services is actually quite further behind the automotive industry in terms of marketing tech, and a lot of opportunities to go out there and make some loud noise. So we started. Me and the other folks that were Union, we started Punchlist Digital 3 years ago, or 3 years in September, and now we're starting to make a lot of noise here, educating and teaching about these kind of things. So that said, enough about me. Let's get into the fun. Within marketing, there's so many acronyms, right? There's I think most of us know SEO, search engine optimization, showing up in Google. But there's a whole lot of new ones that have come out this year, and it's the last thing we need is more acronyms. But we really do need to recognize these things because consumer behavior is shifting so significantly. GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. This is actually one of many ways in which showing up in ChatGPT and Perplexity and Cloud and these other LLMs is recognized. Some people call it AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, or AEO. Or some people call it AI, engine optimization, but most people are beginning to call it GEO. Of course, AI overviews is something that's been on Google to summarize the search engine result pages. AI started in 2024, and then LLM, large language model. Again, that's that is like the ChatGPTs or the Groks, or using Google AI mode. Going and asking questions to these different things. So with that said, we got some more acronyms. SERPs, the search engine result pages. We've been, a lot of folks have said for the last several years that SEO is dead, because it's all about just you lean in, you put your money into local service ads, you buy your paid results. That's going to be a big part of what's being seen. Why even focus on SEO when you can just buy these ads and you have to go drop down all the way to the bottom of the page to even get to the organics. And that had some level of truth. There's a lot of folks that are clicking on these. Obviously, it's a big part of the overall marketing plan for contractors to focus on LSAs and search ads. But the landscape has shifted significantly. And so, organic was still, for those who are doing SEO correctly, the top overall traffic source, and typically one of the highest converting sources for contractors. But now, all of a sudden, we have a lot more real estate coming from these AI overviews, AIO, right? And so basically what those are doing is it's summarizing all the organic blue links that were below the paid ads. It's kind of the TLDR of, what organically is showing up. So when people are asking for, things like gas leak repair in Durham, there's going to be giving you all sorts of different information about how to get your gas leak repaired and who might be able to help you, and essentially summarizing all of the different organic links. The same kind of thing happening, of course, on these LLMs. But we want to start with Google because even though ChatGPT is the gorilla when it comes to market share in AI search, still the vast majority of folks are using Google. Still, I mean, around 80% total are using Google for their searches. And one of the things that we recognize happens with these AI overviews is when this happens, and when people are doing maybe not this kind of search, because typically when someone's doing this kind of search, they want to take some kind of action. But when an AI overview is present, there's 40% less clicks. So one of the other things that we've seen across the industry is, I mean, clicks are down significantly. Almost everyone's traffic has dropped to some extent this year because people are getting their information much faster. And so, when we look at the way that the consumer is behaving differently is it's not we're not losing as many of these transactional searches or commercial searches when somebody is looking to find us and needs to make an action, make a phone call. They need their help, especially for those, more high intent or immediate needs, emergency type queries. But some of the things where consumers used to go and find information out about this stuff on our website, maybe they're asking, higher level questions first, but now they can ask 1, 2, 3 questions in Google and then, get their answers there and then eventually say, okay, now I got to pick the contractor is going to help me. And so we're seeing less clicks, but we're not seeing less commercial intent clicks or emergency kind of clicks. So I do want to kind of start off here with the SEO fundamentals, because this is what really, I mean, if you're not doing SEO, then you're not going to show up for GEO. So a lot of the things that have always been the most important things to do to show up organically, to show up in the the blue free links underneath the paid ads is your key, well, one, keywords, content strategy, knowing what to go after. And so this has always been pretty easy. So if you don't have it, or you're not sure what to access, Google has a tool called Search Console. And if you don't have this, or your marketing company has it, I would suggest that you go out there and make sure you get it, because this gives you, one, the healthier website, or the broken links, all these different kind of things to make sure that your website's healthy. But it also shows you all the queries that you're showing up for across Google, and there's a few that are taken out for privacy concerns, but it's a pretty good sample size. So, I mean, for most contractors, you've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of different queries that you're showing up for a month. And that gives you a pretty good direction of, this is exactly what someone typed into Google. I should make sure that I'm showing up for these things. And when you look at the things that you have the highest ROI on, you like your services that you get the best return on, you just start tracking those keywords. Some people track like 10 or 15 or 20. We typically actually recommend tracking 200 or 300, because people are searching for so many different types of things now. And then just prioritize, what are the things that are driving the most phone calls, what are the things that are driving the most revenue to you internally. If you've got ServiceTitan or different CRMs, and you can actually tie that back to Google, then you can even start, literally delivering ads and those kind of things based on, what's going to give you the biggest return. And a lot of folks have kind of set it and forget it. And there's so much more you can do with this, but that information is abundantly clear. And then, when you have all that information, then build out a content strategy. Start building content around all these things. So it's like SEO has always been pretty easy in this regard. It's what are people searching for? Build a page of content that matches it. Across all the cities in your area, a lot of folks will just do one page for gas leak repair instead of maybe 5 pages, because there's 5 cities that we're targeting. The more granular you can get, and nowadays with AI, you can build this content and it can be relevant, and don't just go into ChatGPT and say, hey, build me this page, and have the content put in there. Like Google and these other LLMs are still looking for helpful, human conversation type content, but AI tools allow you to build it at a much greater rate. And so the folks that are sitting on a web page that have maybe 10, 15, 20 pages total content, you're not going to get seen in any of these things, because those that are doing it well are it's an information battle we're looking at right now, right? So, building hundreds of pages of content and be the company that is answering the questions that people are looking for. So again, we have the answers, we know what people are looking for, and then answer those now. And we can build that content, answer that at a greater rate than ever. Beyond that, that's just the first pillar of SEO, right? But that gets foundational for GEO as well, is local SEO. And so, all the directories, which are huge now in the sentiment that's being expressed now in GEO, what's being said about you, Google Business Profile, all those reviews, that a lot of that powers a lot of the answers in the AI overviews and a lot of, a lot of the directories, Yelp and Angie and those kind of things power a lot of the sentiment when people are asking, what's the reputation of this contractor? What should I expect from their service? There's actually there's a contractor out in Toyota or in Colorado, and I'm not gonna say who the contractor was, but the search was the search in ChatGPT was, what should I expect when doing business with this contractor? And then the answer was, lawyer up, you're in for a wild ride, and it's like, yikes! This is before people used to have to make their own decisions. They choose your own adventure. Where do I click? What do I look at? These summaries, these AI overviews, ChatGPT, they're taking an opinion based on all these different fundamental pieces, and they will give you that opinion, and it's wild, right? And so anyway, but beyond that, technical SEO, the least sexy part of SEO, but making sure that your website's built with the right, site hierarchy, that you have the meta titles and descriptions and H1s and alt tags, and basically what, and now schema is a big part of the GEO, making sure that the search engines can read and understand what your page is about, making sure the LLMs can read and make sure what your pages are about. There's some pretty advanced stuff happening now, AEPs to layer on top of your website, your landing pages and your website, so that you can even make it easier for the LLMs to read it. But like, just essentially, are you feeding the machine enough information that it understands what your content's about and who you are? Again, the least sexy, but it's an important piece to build within that. And then ultimately, traditional SEO, when they click on the blue link and they go to your website, is your website built with all this information, but also to convert? One of the biggest mistakes that that we often see. Excuse me, lose my voice. One of the biggest mistakes that we often see is that, especially with folks that are trying to put so much information on their website and on each page, and and it turns into a whole encyclopedia, and content's good, but we forget why we're even making the content in itself. And it's like, we need people to call us. We got to get these trucks on the road, and making sure that you build it with the right UX in mind, the right user experience, so that we have a lot of great information, that we're answering the questions, that we are measuring and tracking, how visible we are. But also, we have the easy buttons that convert, easy click the calls, easy, schedule appointments, all those kind of things, so that that as we build all this traffic, coming to the website, they do in fact convert. So today we're talking about, that's the foundational SEO pieces, right? But we're talking now about the kind of the intersection between SEO and GEO, and that's where we always wanted to show up and get those blue links and drive traffic to ourselves. With GEO, all those things that we do to drive traffic to our website. GEO, there's some people that will never leave ChatGPT in their search. They will make their decision on there. We can't track them as easily because they don't allow us that same kind of tracking at this point, at least. I suspect some of that's going to change as we start seeing more advertising come to the LLMs. But some people are going to ask all those questions and then figure out which contractor directly in ChatGPT, see the phone number directly in ChatGPT, and then make that call. So we need to be seen there, right? And especially because when you look at what's happened. Our client base has seen more than a 500% increase in ChatGPT traffic this past year, just year over year. From the beginning of last year to the beginning of this year. And so by the end of this year, we're projecting about 30% of search traffic is diverted to an LLM, 50% by 2028. And, I mentioned this anecdote right before we started, but I was, chatting with a group of folks last year around this time. And it was April last year. And I said, how many people in this room have used an LLM this week? And the first question is like, well, what's an LLM? Large language model, right? And ChatGPT and Perplexity, it was about 1 in 5. And but now I just asked that question just last month, last month to about 200 people, and every hand but like 3 showed up for have you used an LLM this week. Everyone's using this. A lot of people are using, ChatGPT and Google or ChatGPT or Perplexity and Grok and a combination of them. But people are using one of these at such a high rate, and it's now cannibalizing a lot of the search traffic. So another reason why your Google organic traffic is down, and even your paid traffic, depending on or at least the search volume. So it's actually because volume's down, it's actually rising the cost of a lot of our clicks too. If you look at that, that's a whole other issue is how much money gets spent on paid ads across the industry because there's a lot of ways to save money there. A whole different conversation, right? But anyway, so I mean, we are getting to a point where this many people are starting to use these LLMs, so we got to make sure that we're showing up in them and showing up well. I'm going to give a few stats here as we kind of kick off things. Again, Google's not dead, SEO's not dead. There's 6 to 9.5 million searches per minute. There are 14 billion daily searches. I mean, 5 trillion searches on Google last year. And you just look at what's been happening. Even since 2020, we were sitting at about 3.2 trillion searches happened. And, if SEO is dead, then how did we get up to 5 trillion searches last year? So it always drives me nuts when people sensationalize that stuff because people are actually using Google more than ever. And again, what's happening, kind of to reinforce what I said at the beginning of the conversation, is people are asking Google just more questions, and they don't have to leave Google to get those questions answered. So you start high funnel, and then you start working your way down to get an answer, and then it's like, all right, now that I've asked 5 or 6 or 7 searches, now I need to go buy something. And so we're still getting the end click, but they don't have to go to different websites and spend as much time. So they're using search even more. So it's, and it really, I mean, and we suspect this is going to continue to be the case because people are getting more efficient in how they're searching. So, I mean, another 10 to 15%, we're going to be seeing, 17, 18 billion daily searches. I mean, this is going to continue to grow and increase because people are getting that much more efficient with how they search. Some more stats for you. AI content. So people that are using AI to help build content, and I'm going to say on this too, Google has said, I think it was in 2024, in February 2024, they said, look, you are fine to use AI to help you build your content, but it needs to be helpful content. So they've had a number of different algorithm updates that have penalized folks that just create spammy content that, you just go into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me up a page of content, for gas leak, repair in Durham. And I keep using that example because that was the first thing I'd put on that slide. But because it's not purposeful, it's not helpful. But if you're using AI and maybe a database that's speaking very, person to person kind of feeling to that consumer, and it's very helpful, and you have a lot of great information on there, perhaps. It's scheduler tools or pricing transparency or all these different kind of things you can add in there. That's when you want to use AI, and people are using it. I mean, we're getting it to be about 1 of 5 pages of content on Google is AI generated. It's funny too. Again, we talk about efficiency. Next stat here, 70% of users read only the first third of AI overviews. So not only are we getting more efficient in seeing the summaries, but people are not even reading the whole thing. It's instead of having to go and find your own answer and go into 2 or 3 maybe websites to figure out what's going on. They're skimming and they're finding their answer and not even reading the whole AI overview, which is really interesting because those are not very big. I mean, it's the TLDRs, right? Which is funny. Just to reinforce the importance of ChatGPT, there's 700 million weekly active users. I mean, it's the fourth most viewed website globally, and that happened quick. And again, that's going to continue to build. People using it the most are younger folks, 16 to 27. But really, I mean, across all different age groups. 70.7% of home service searches trigger an AI overview. So, I mean, that's the good news right now. It's going to keep getting more. We'll talk about why and what types of AI overviews are coming out in a second. We did a search over about 237,000 different queries to trigger that. 1 in 5 home service, yeah, so going to be kind of similar there, right? Queries over 7 words have nearly a 50% chance of triggering AI overview. What that essentially means is if you're typing more than 7 words, long tail search is what we would maybe used to call that with like voice search and those kind of things. You're asking a question. You are, it's more of an LLM kind of search. I have a question. It's a little bit more detailed. I need an answer. Like you can tell that people are looking for more information when it's but if you want something more immediate, like emergency AC repair. That's I need that right now. So that's more transactional commercial, not as often to show up for an AI overview. And this is funny because 82% of respondents say that the AI-powered search is more helpful than traditional search. And I'm just curious who the 18% are that don't think it's more helpful, because it's a lot more helpful these days. But that's, neither here nor there. So again, I want to reinforce this point, because what our strategy needs to be nowadays is to uh, build out content, build out a strategy that is accomplishing two things. There are people that want more information, and we want to influence them and drive them to us and be seen for those kind of searches that are of more informational intent. And then there are people who immediately need stuff. So there's some folks that, again, will never leave ChatGPT, and they'll get their answer, and eventually they will choose which contractor to help them with their needs on ChatGPT. And then there's also folks that will go to your website, and they will convert to your website and be on your website. So we need to be creating a strategy that speaks to both of them. So AI overviews, that's all the keywords that trigger those are informational intent. So as we're building out our content strategy, we want to focus on all of the now buyers, the emergency type searches, the like obviously I need to go and get help right away kind of searches, and get build that content plan for that, make sure it's full of conversion opportunities. But we also, need to be building informational content on this, and same pages or blogs or other kind of things, so that when people are trying to say, um, high level search, how much does a new HVAC unit cost in Raleigh, or in Winston-Salem, or in Charlotte, or wherever. If we're building content there, then we can be influencing that, that kind of search. And then also when people start doing more searches that are kind of in between, something like that, like, gosh, how much is this going to cost me? All right, who are the best contractors to work with? Who are the best AC repair companies in this area? If we're creating that kind of content and building up our own authority, and then we're injecting in a lot of helpful information, and really focusing on our awards and our accolades, and all the reasons why we have better, like we're a better, stronger company to help support your needs. When we inject that into our content as well, that ends up going in and feeding the machine. And so we want to make sure that we can be there, answer questions, show up for those that need those commercial searches right now, ready to go. They're not getting the AI overviews. But then at the same time, some people are going to be asking those 4, 5, 6, 7 questions, and particularly for questions that are about who are the best companies to work with with an area. If we can be, again, on these content pages, talking about our awards and talking about all of the things that separate our company and why our service is better. If we inject that in there, they're going to read that from that page, and it's going to end up being part of the AI overview and part of the LLM. And so, it's really interesting, that there's two different things that we have to do on our website, but this is the new reality, because a large portion are going to still go to the site. But there's still now a growing portion that, upwards of 30% of searches are going to be LLMs. And so we have to be really kind of focused on both of these things at once. A few more stats before we get into some actionable execution ideas here. Again, we know these AI overviews are big when they do show up. 43% of the screen on desktop, 48% of mobile. They take up a ton of space, ton of real estate, ahead of the LSAs, right? On those kind of searches, ahead of the ads. 81% of queries that get the AIOs are on mobile devices, but I mean, that makes sense because a lot of searches are on mobile in general. But people, needing those quick questions, those quick answers on their phone. And then this is the interesting one. Again, we are seeing across the industry less clicks. 58% of searches now get 0 clicks. So again, recognizing that the consumer journey is a lot different now. So the more that we can influence that journey, and then be the one that shows up when they are at that bottom of the funnel, ready to make a choice between these companies that are showing up right here, Bass Gas Line Repair Company in Durham. We want to be one of the folks that shows up for that. All right, so a few quick stats here in terms of what types of searches: informational, commercial, transactional, navigational. These are 4 ways to look at different types of searches. So 37% of informational searches get that AIO. So like, how much does a new HVAC unit cost? People were asking for these kind of questions, and oftentimes in the specific area. Then they might move into more commercial, kind of searches where, all right, well, I got a good idea for what I can expect. Who's the best one to work with? I want to compare. I want to understand the reputation of the environment, those kind of things. But 15.9% get an AIO. And then emergency AC installation near me. This is someone who's ready to go, ready to buy. See it drops, right? The AI has dropped because we're trying like one, Google is also trying to get their revenue stream, right? So that's a company that makes a ton of money by getting people to click on ads. So they still want people to do that. They're moving people down the funnel within the platform, so they don't have to leave Google. So in fact, they actually make even more money, which is interesting, right? And then again, just navigational. Not very often does that happen, but your company.com. So some things that we want to measure. So I mean, like we know the landscape's changed. The best way to create success here is to understand where we are. We need to start benchmarking where we are now so that we can start building for the future and we can start creating an environment that we can set goals around, letting the data dictate the direction. We say that all the time. Data dictates the direction because anywhere where you're not showing up, you want to build content and show up. And you can't do that without measuring that. So search visibility, this is a traditional KPI that we look at, a key performance indicator for just SEO, right? So this is essentially a metric where again you can go to Search Console, you can look at every query you're showing up for, and you can use tools like SEMrush or Moz or Ahrefs or any of those things to start tracking keywords. And I would recommend going to your Google Ads. You can look at query data in there. What are the keywords that are driving the most phone calls? And if you don't have it connected, with your CRM, a lot of the CRMs, especially the big three, are you can connect that with your Google Ads, and you can start literally prioritizing your budget around what your return is. So whatever services are driving the highest return, you use ROAS as a concept to prioritize both your paid ads budget, but also what your plan of attack is to increase your visibility organically and start tracking those keywords. Am I showing up for emergency AC installation or emergency furnace repair, whatever that is, those words that drive the best return, and Google gives you the answer. You get the cheat sheet or the cheat sheet because you can see exactly what queries caused what search terms cause those leads to happen for you in Google Ads, or in Search Console, you can see even more searches that you show up for, so you know what people are looking for. So that's always been the SEO side of things, and I would suggest not 15 or 20 keywords, but 100 or 200 keywords. Really try to see how do you fit into this environment. And then that allows you to create topical authority. All the different services you have. The way to accomplish growth in these areas is to make sure that you're building enough content that is helpful in nature across all your service areas that you can start being that topical authority. There's a lot of folks in our industry here that only have, like I said, 15 or 20 pages of content, or even like 50 or 60. And it's an information battle for the consumer right now. I mean, that's how we like to look at it. If you have 5 or 6 cities that you're doing service in, and you don't have pages that show your service area and give some level of expectation around what the experience is, and kind of reinforce or humble brag about who you are and what you're doing in those areas, then your likelihood of showing up when people are doing these searches in these different cities is pretty slim. It's highly competitive. Those that are doing this the best are crushing it, and those who are not doing it are losing more and more visibility. Then they're having to spend that much more money on Google Ads. And Google Ads is an auction environment, so as we know, people are clicking less often. That means that less clicks means higher bids, means that costs a lot more money. So this is the way to long term start saving money for your marketing budget by building topical authority and measuring. So, and I've got about maybe 10 more minutes here, Adrian. I'm gonna have some time for questions and stuff afterwards, but I mean, like, it works. So I mean, you build, like, if you build content. Here's an example of a company that built 204 pages of content. And then saw, a 250% increase in phone calls. Focus on the right kind of content that makes the phone ring. You get the you get the cheat sheet in Google Ads. Every single query that's driving these phone calls. You start seeing that, and you start saying, okay, what happens if I go from position, in organic, position 5 to position 1? Well, when they do click on the blue links, 40% of people click on the first link, 20% click on the second link, 10% click on the third link. So, I mean, if you're not in the top 3, then, you got only a 30% chance of even getting clicked. And most of those are going to paid ads and those kind of things. So ultimately you need to be there. And then, those top three links have an extremely high likelihood of being part of the overall AIO or showing up in the LLMs. What are some ways to show up in the LLMs? Here is just a quick breakdown of AI engine market share. So ChatGPT is right now the clear favorite when it comes to using AI search. People using Google AI mode and Gemini that's gained a lot of traction. It's up to 18.2%. Perplexity, Claude, Grok, they're just way smaller. So if you want to start somewhere when it comes to LLMs, I just recommend, ChatGPT and Google. Keep focusing Google and do SEO the way you've always been doing it, and then that's going to help you. You can see the green things here. It mentions like if you're going to show up in these LLMs, doing the basics for SEO is going to be a big part of that. There's other pieces that are big that we're going to talk about in just a second here, but a high percentage of what's driving a lot of um, these algorithm pieces are coming from just doing SEO correctly, and then talking about yourself. Humble brags. A lot of our content, we just put some information in there, but if we can be injecting in again all those awards and accolades and everything that kind of helps set the experience apart, that shows up. They pull that directly from the website and then they put that in the summaries. And they put that in the answers. And so, if you are, Raleigh, best business from the NNO or something like that, or you win some local awards that you can humble brag about that, and you put that in your content, that can show up as a reinforcement when someone's saying, well, who's the best HVAC company to work with? Well, these guys are the best. They're actually even voted the best, or whatever it is. Everyone, like a lot of us that are doing community outreach and we're helping our communities. This industry is great because we have a ton of entrepreneurs that love to give back, right? Some of those humble brags. Yes, it always feels good to give back. It also, other people like to see that too. And if we can humble brag in a way that's not too much, that comes through in what these responses say. So. There's a lot of different LLMs. Again, if we were to start somewhere as ChatGPT, that's where a lot of folks are going right now. Here's where each of the different generative engines excel. Perplexity is less likely than ChatGPT and Gemini for a contractor to show up. They typically are looking for more authoritative websites that have a little bit, when you look at some of the more traditional SEO KPIs. Your site authority score and stuff for those that are familiar with companies like SEMrush. We see less folks in Perplexity show up, but we have seen ChatGPT put a major focus on the citations that are helping to fuel the prompt responses. A lot of those are coming from local businesses. Like they are, Gemini, Google has always been about local. That's why local SEO has been a hot topic for years and years, and Google Business Profile and all those kind of things. ChatGPT is trying to create a more localized experience. There's a lot more volatility in who has the most citations and doesn't on a month-to-month basis. They're still figuring it out. But again, those are probably the top two to go to. A lot of folks use Claude, a lot of folks use Grok too, but still those bottom three are about 6% of the total market share. Those top two are the lion's share. So. We talked about search visibility. That's a way to look at SEO traditionally. Now, how do we measure? How do we measure how good we're doing and showing up in ChatGPT? And so here's what we recommend. There's a few different tools out there that can help you to do this. We leverage. We pull in a ton of information from Scrunch data, for instance, and we pull that through an API that allows us to take that data and run with it and do all sorts of stuff, which is crazy. How much you can use that in today's world, but that's where we use it. SEMrush now is beginning to use data like this, but instead of just showing up and then allowing yourself to be seen and clicked, now there's 3 different KPIs with how we're doing in the LMs that we want to focus on. First off is just like search visibility, is prompt visibility. Are we showing up when someone's asking, who's the best AC repair company near me, or those kind of things? Who are the top 3, whatever, all those things. Are we showing up for these searches? And so, what's different about prompts versus just regular Google searches, if I did the same Google search, back to back to back to back, I'm probably going to get the same exact results today. If I do it back to back to back to back, if I go to ChatGPT and I ask the same question twice, it'll be 2 different answers. It's not going to be the same answer. And so, unlike where you're just doing regular keyword rankings, if you're going to be measuring this and you want to put your hyper focus on, again, this is it requires either using a tool or, I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing this manually. So we like to go in and actually look at about 1,000 or 2,000 prompts across all the different service lines for different folks, and run the same prompt over and over again so that we can start pattern detecting. If you say top HVAC companies near me, and sometimes you will show up 30% of the time, sometimes we'll show up 70% of the time. You start identifying holes. And again, pattern detecting. How often am I showing up, and where am I never showing up? In the prompts. And so when you see where you're not ever showing up, that's where you can start creating your plan of attack to build more content, put a greater focus on showing up in those different types of things. But it's not just about showing up, because, like I said, I had that anecdote about the contractor out in Colorado that lawyer up, you're in for a wild ride. People can show up all the time, but if they show up and they look awful, no one's going to use them. And a lot of folks have a pretty bad reputation. They're not showing up because they have good SEO on their website. They're showing up because Angie told them that they aren't very good, or Angie are telling the consumers they're very good, or Yelp, or BBB. And there's all sorts of different companies out there that or directories out there that are fueling a lot of these citations, which is ultimately the third piece. So brand sentiment, trying to measure how well you look. Again, these tools actually help you measure, here's how positive people are talking about you, or how you're showing up in these different searches. What might be helpful, I don't know if any of you guys have done this or not, but go and just ask a few questions about your own company. Go in and ask a few questions, and unfortunately, because a lot of people, a lot of angry people like to Yelp. Like a lot of Yelpers are not happy people, but they go in there and then they say some negative things, or there's some things that are on BBB that some contractors haven't looked at in a while. But even if you have one or two complaints against you, that's going to show up. And so understanding where you're being talked about negatively can help you create a plan of attack to go back and either rework things internally and maybe learn about how to even run the business better. But then also, let's go see how we can, show up better in these different review sites or those kind of things. And then ultimately, going back to prompt visibility too, we want to control the narrative as much as possible. So if we show up 90% of the time, but it's all coming from Yelp and Angie and not our own website, then we're not shaping the narrative. We're letting others control our destiny, essentially, right? And how we're being seen. So at what percentage of the time are you being cited? And these LLMs, ChatGPT might use 5, 10, 15, 20 different citations in formulating its response. How often are we the ones that are that our website is part of shaping that narrative, and again, feeding the machine so that we can control how we look and feel. So again, at what frequency do we, are we seen as one of the citations? So a few last things before we can get to some Q&A, if there is any. Do you use an online reputation management company? So again, this is something for a long time we said, okay, we're gonna send all of our reviews directly to Google. Google has the lion's share, and then I think that was good for a long time. But now, when we look at these citations, and especially when we look at brand sentiment, where we see the most negative brand sentiment, or where we see a ton of citations, is from Yelp, is from BBB, is from Angie, is from Thumbtack, Home Advisor. There's a lot of different review sites out there that are shaping the response and are part of that response. And so in our ORM strategies, we want to send reviews to more than just Google now. I mean, if that's what we're doing, and we want to send it to especially the areas where there are lots of negative reviews that makes us look bad, and start measuring how are we doing across those things, and then having a real plan of attack to spread the love to all these review sites more. And again, this just allows us to be seen that much better because they are being cited and sourced. And again, when we go back and look at that citation frequency, you can leverage what's being cited the most in my market and prioritize your review efforts around those things. I mean, again, just like before, I mean, it's a little bit harder, but still the data dictates the direction. When you start measuring these things and you know where you are now, then you can grow and increase and be that much more visible in your strategy. So again, do the reviews, create content that is lengthy in information. It's humble bragging and talking about ourselves and all these happy people that are out there that love us. and convert at the same time. So we want to have a lot of great information. We want to humble brag, and we want them to reach out and talk to us. So, I mean, as you build content, it needs to be a little bit longer than before in terms of feeding the machine the information, because we're going after two people, those that are coming to our website, clicking these green buttons here, or are going to ChatGPT and are going to get their answer there, and we want that same kind of human element to come through in the response too. So we'll close the loop here with kind of three takeaways. Still, organic is most of the time, if you're doing SEO, right, your highest overall traffic source. We still want to get the organic blue links. That's still very important, but we want to do that and show up in the AIOs and show up in the prompt responses. We need to be doing SEO and GEO together. I mean, it's some people don't even believe GEO exists, like it's the Easter Bunny or something, but it's like SEO evolved. It is. However you want to look at it, we want to be, winning both of those things. And we will do that by building strong content and a variety of content. Volume and variety is I mean, that's a theme certainly to lean into. Dominate your online reputation management across more than just Google. And then that's how you can help own the narrative across all the sites. We want to be the ones who are feeding the machine and shaping the narrative. And just, I mean, again, if anything, go on to ChatGPT and some of these LLMs and just ask about what they think about your company across a variety of services you offer, because in a lot of cases our brand sentiment is not as good, and it's pulling from some dark places on the internet, right? And so understanding that and focusing on brand sentiment is how AI is gonna speak highly of you. With all that said, thank you. Appreciate being on here and sharing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was very insightful.